Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Fowler, and it is great to be here again to see you all and have you partake in the show. I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. I've done 17 companies. I've been involved in 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Yva.ai, an AI HR tech company. Love artificial intelligence and quantum computing. I'm the CEO, president of GSD Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio working in 24 countries around the world and expanding. So it was with great honor today that I get a chance to bring on someone that I've had the pleasure of being on several panels with, Jim Thomas, who's a partner at Kuranaga Partners in Orlando, Florida. You know, as you know, Florida is now becoming a place for people to come to, for startups to go to. Incredible scene in Orlando and Miami, vibrant community. And with people like Jim on board, it's getting better. He's a philanthropist, he's an investor, and he's an entrepreneur. And with that, Jim, great to have you here today.
Great to be with you, Gary.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about it. So how did you went to school in California. University of Southern California is not a bad place to be. Why in the world did you move to Orlando?
That's when I was leaving LA, everybody said that. They're like, no one moves to Orlando. You go to Orlando, you have a good time, you come home. They're like, are you on a witness protection program? And I kept getting that over and over.
You said, hey, listen, if I was, I wouldn't be able to tell you about it.
Yeah, I'm like, well, first of all, yeah. So the answer is definitely no. I said, come visit. I'm like, when's the last time? Because especially from California, very few people go to Florida because you have Disneyland, you have all the hospitality things in Southern California. And I said, come visit. And I wasn't sure. Even the first year, I thought I'll give this a year. I just wanted to experience something different than I grew up in LA and I'd been there and it was good. At the time, everybody was like, oh, Austin was really blowing up. But I'm like, I just want an East Coast experience, but I really don't want to. I'd worked in DC, I'd worked in politics, really didn't want to go to New York. And so all of a sudden, Florida made a lot of sense. And then I just liked Central Florida. And the more time I spent here, I realized the amazing, they call it the I-4 corridor. Really, if you look at like University of Florida, Gainesville, out to Daytona, which is Embry-Riddle, down the Space Coast, and then through Orlando over to Tampa, St. Pete, Sarasota. That swath has some of the best state universities in the whole country and turns out some of the best intellectual property in the whole country. And where I sit right now, I'm like 45 minutes from Kennedy Space Center. I watch rocket launches from my balcony. So it started to make a lot of sense to me, but until the past couple of years, people still thought I was crazy for setting up shop in Florida.
Interesting. And so, you've had a wide background. So you went from California State Senate as a legislative aide to a campaign manager in the Senate, to the California State Senate as a district representative. And you did that for a year. Why did you leave that? Because your background's public policy, right?
I get that.
Which one day I want to do this anymore, or what happened?
So, when I grew up, my parents and really my grandparents were heavily involved in politics and really listening to them. And they grew up, through the Depression, and they saw the Oklahoma Dust Bowl, and then immigrated to California. And just that whole generation, if you were going to do something positive in the country or for the planet, you got into politics. Nonprofits did their thing, and those greedy businessmen, were just out for profits on the other side. And so I was just kind of, I don't know, brainwashed or groomed. Like I just wanted to make an impact on the world from a young age. And that was just certainly the thing I was going to do. And so I was kind of methodical about it. I worked for 2 cities. I worked for 2 state senators. I worked for a Florida House member in DC. I worked, legislation in Sacramento, ran campaigns, and then did a few years of government relations. And after 10 plus years, I looked back and I said, what have I accomplished, and what have we, from the political side, what have we really done? And are we just kind of fighting the same fight over and over again?
Is that what's happening, Jim? I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world today, right? But is that what's really happening? Are we just are we fighting the battle so much between us, and we're not really taking care of business?
Well, the biggest problem that I see is I saw how people could be successful. You use the topics, you get a little further right, you get a little further left, you get people behind you, and you get into office. But think about the topics.
So do they really believe it, do you think? Because a lot of this
maybe they do, but I just think they're short-sighted. We need great people in government, but the idea that government is going to solve affordable housing, that government is going to do all the things, they come up with these. It doesn't matter left or right; it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They come up with these huge campaign agendas, and then they feed it to the public, and you go, maybe I'll finally believe this guy or gal, and they'll do what they said. But I think the system isn't, innovation just doesn't, and that's what I found. Innovation just doesn't come from government, but that's too often the words that politicians use. I'm going to create more jobs. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then 4 years later, you're like, wait a minute.
Jim,
that didn't happen.
And so are they just, it's really interesting for me. Are they just saying that to get in office? Is this like, they're just saying like, I'm going to do this? Because every one of them, we're going to lower taxes, or we're going to take care of the our senior citizens or the poor, whatever. But just to get in office or what? It's crazy,
I think some of them believe it. Some of them, I think it's just, they're wedge issues. And again, it's not to demonize either side. It's what I see as sad is they demonize each other. Oh, you didn't vote right enough, and you didn't vote left enough. And if only we would have had the votes, then we would have made the change. And you're like, again, innovation doesn't come from government. And so that's what really drew me. I go, man, if I want to make a difference, I think I'm going to head into the business world. I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and I'm going to help entrepreneurs, and let's tackle the biggest issues of the day. And let's go after that. And oh, by the way, profiting is okay because it's called sustainability. It means we get to stay in business and we get to keep doing what we said we were going to do.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And you mentioned an interesting point. I mean, I've never seen the country as polarized by far left and far right as now. I don't know for balance. I don't know what to do, but it's kind of insane because on both sides of the spectrum, they're way over the top. You know what I mean? Just way over the top.
And not that we have to get too deep into politics, but unfortunately, that's how the system, the way it's been constructed, does that because we organize around parties, and to win your primary, you pretty much have to be to the right or to the left of. You can't win a primary down the center. You can't say, "Oh, I'm the most reasonable candidate. Vote for me," party.
That's interesting. You're right about that. So then, you can't be moderate to win, right?
You can't. Well, you can't be. Usually, you can't be the sensible, moderate candidate in the middle and win the primary. So then, when the general comes, you have two candidates that are further and further apart. And then, depending on the breakdown of the district, obviously one or the other is going to win. And so now, each cycle, these candidates have to get. Just by nature of the beast, they get further and further apart. But then when they can't accomplish what they said, then they point the finger back at the other, say, "Oh, it wasn't my fault. It was their fault. It was them." And you go, "Okay." And then you're like, "Okay, I've been at this long enough. I see this pattern repeating itself." And then you go out and you say, "Hey, what if we get a coalition together and talk about homelessness and affordable housing and how to build a sustainable model?" And then people from the left and right go, "I care about the homeless. I care about affordable. I care about these issues." And all of a sudden you see these good people from the left and right coming together to be like, how do we just solve this without having to have a R or D behind our names?
Maybe the thing is you got to be far left or far right to get in office, and then you come in, you can be moderate, right? You got to more moderate.
And that's generally how that's generally how it works. And watch it every time. Whether it's the president, it's usually most notable in the presidential politics. You run real far out, left or right. You grab the nomination, and then you try to come back to the center enough to grab enough people to win. And it's just, it's just rinse and repeat. And then when you're up for election, you run back out to the far left, far right, and it's just, it's over and over again. But it's just, after 10 years, I realized, I'm like, we're talking about the same things, and I just don't personally feel like I've done anything. And I've now learned, around government relations, I know how to make a nice business out of it, but I don't want to be in the business of politics. I want to be in the business of doing something. No,
that's cool. So, okay, so you go there. Okay, why did you go to Inland Energy?
We were working on some really, that was really a government relations, and then Inland was a sustainable, really working on some of the early sustainable energy projects. Some bioreactors, some really cool solar farms. And so that's what I started. I think that's some of my early exposure was I was still working on the government relations side, but I saw big business doing really cool stuff, really, kind of cutting edge stuff that the politicians were talking about. I was now working with, business leaders who were actually doing it. And obviously there has to be a relationship. Some of those early projects were certainly government, had some level of government funding or some tax incentives or something like that. Early SpaceX literally got off the ground because of, working with NASA. Early Tesla got off the ground because, some of the tax incentives. Again, the message is we need good people in office, but we can't take them at face value that they're going to do all the things that they say they are, because it's not built for that.
No, that's interesting. Okay, so 2003, when did you make the shift and start to move to entrepreneurship? When did that start for you? Was that you did a lot of philanthropy?
Yeah.
When did it start?
So I used grad school as a way to transition out of government, and then I started looking at what could be done from the community development level, and I started looking. Started getting some experience in and around real estate, community development. And it was just you think of the early mid 2000s, I got Facebook when I was in grad school only because I was a grad school student. This was all it was pre-iPhone, it was pre-Facebook, it was think YouTube. It was kind of, it seems archaic these days of all of the stuff that we do now. I saw the craziest stat just 2 days ago. In 2007, the wrap our heads around this. In 2007, Apple was worth $70 billion. And today it's worth $2.4 trillion. And it was worth $1 trillion in 2020. And now, yeah.
If you bought Apple stock back in 1998 or 99, when it was $1.40.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's it. I love it. And, it's to extend the point we're talking about. There's a quote that says more wealth will be created in the next 10 years than what was created in the last 100 years. And just seeing that Apple going from 1 trillion to 2.4 trillion is one of those examples. But I think we live in a time now where the more good that you do, and that's what we do at Kirinaga, we say we're not impact investors, but what we invest in, the bigger the impact that the investment has, the more good it'll do, and the more profit that everybody will make. So I think we're moving into that age now where if you're dumping oil in the river, you're doing bad. Bad things are probably still happening, but hopefully there's enough cameras these days that's catching that stuff, and we, as consumers, we can go I'm not buying from them anymore. I'm going in this other direction.
So tell us a little bit about Kirinaga and what about where you're focused, what kind of companies? I know you invest in early stage companies.
Yeah.
And products that are on the verge of commercialization. But what does that mean? What is an early stage company? How much do you invest? What level?
Yeah, of course. I'll just take a quick step back. So I came to Florida. I was just really happy here, but because of my background, I got pulled into the ecosystem pretty quick. The mix between the government, the business, the entrepreneurial community, the startup tech community, and just loved it. Just loved the people who were here. I always tell the story. Folks that come to Florida, or especially in Central Florida, they're here because they love it. When I grew up in LA, a lot of people were just there for the industry. They actually didn't like LA or didn't love LA. I loved LA, but they were just there because they were the prom king or queen, and they thought that they were going to be the next Brad Pitt. Or
I got to tell you, it's the only place I've been to that my taxi driver at the time, Uber driver, like everybody's an actor. You know what I mean? They're trying to pitch you on, I was an extra on this, I was an extra on that. I had a walk on this. It's crazy.
Well, it was a sad part, and that's one of the things that actually finally got me to leave, is because you'd want to be having meaning. You go out to some great party and you're having good conversation, and people are like, oh, are you a producer or a director? Or you're like, no, I'm working in technology. And at the time, that wasn't cool. And they'd be like, okay, next, and they would
really,
if you couldn't connect with their career, if you couldn't help them get their next acting job, like. You couldn't even have a conversation about anything. And I just go, okay, I need to join. And hopefully some of that's changed. I know over the past 10 years, tech is really, much bigger in LA than it used to be. But I was just like, I want to be a part of a different community and a different culture. And I just really enjoy being in Florida collectively, and literally within 100-mile radius. I pick up Tampa, like there's 500,000 students and universities around that within a 100-mile radius of where I'm at. So when I got here, I got pulled into all this stuff. Really enjoyed the community. Really enjoyed all of that, all the connectivity. But then I started running the tech associations and chambers of commerce and doing some really cool stuff. But everybody kept coming back to what we really need is early stage capital. And all of a sudden you were like, wait a minute, we have the students, we have the talent, we have the universities, we have the accelerators, like we have all the pieces. That must be it. We're missing the early stage piece. And when the brightest, startups, I saw it. They'd go usually to Atlanta, sometimes to Boston, New York, sometimes to Austin, and sometimes out to California. And it was just this continual brain drain. And about 7 years ago, I met the two founders of Kiranaga, Dave Scalzo and Terry Berland. And they showed up at my office at the Chamber of Commerce and said, we believe in Florida, and we're here to invest in early stage pre-revenue technology companies. And I'm like, well, you guys are my favorite by default because no one else is. We have angel groups around here throwing, 50 or 100,000, and that type of news was making the paper at the time. And these guys wanted to come in and write, $1, $2, $3 million checks, and then started doing that. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to keep referring all the talent that I see. I'm going to refer to them. They called me up about I guess we started the conversation over 2 years ago now. They said, hey, we did so well with our first fund, but sure enough, the best opportunity, we've invested all around the country, but our best opportunities we find coming out of Florida. And we think it's because there's so little competition. We're getting the cream of the crop, where other places, everybody's fighting for, B and C deals. We're getting A+ deals in Florida. And I go, that's exactly what I've seen. So I'm glad to hear it from you guys. So we put together the second fund really with a Florida thesis, but we're like, hey, we can invest around the country, we can invest around the world, but we think that this is such for the moment, just for this next, handful of years, we think there's just such little competition in this region, and there's so much talent and IP coming out of this region. We go like, this is going to be the hot thing for the next several years. And so, yeah, we launched, it was a little crazy. We launched this fund, got great traction. And then all of a sudden COVID hits, and, the Dow's off 11,000 points. Everybody's, running for cover. But, after a few months, the Dow was back up. The investment community felt, comfortable. And then we got back to raising. Out of our new fund, we've already made 7 investments, and 6 of them are in Florida. And specifically, and we love the whole state, but we've seen so much in this, what I said, the I-4 corridor. All 6 are actually in the corridor.
Wow, that's super. And what kind of companies are you investing in?
So that's what we, like I said, we really go after high impact, meaningful companies. And that's, at the top of the list would be a company called Violet Defense. They, I wish I could take credit for it. Dave and Terry invested in Violet back in 2016, and they had patented UV technology that would clean surfaces and clean the air in spaces. And Terry had a background, he taught nuclear engineering at the Naval School when it was here. And then he also was a partner at McKinsey working in their health and infections unit. So he understood the technology. He goes like, this is real. But imagine in 17, 18, and 19, trying to tell people why they wanted clean surfaces and clean air in indoor spaces. Like people are like, when's the last time anybody really got sick? And then all of a sudden, the Orlando Magic actually licensed the technology in 2019 because they wanted to keep the players and the staff healthy, because they saw the immediate, hey, if we could just stay a little healthier, maybe that'll help us win more games. And then all of a sudden 2020 hits, and then the phone's just ringing off the hook, because UV's been around forever, but the technology that they have has brought the cost down immensely, orders of magnitude of cost versus the existing competition. So it's just been amazing to see what that company's up to, and I think we'll be very happy to see what happens with them over the next several months.
No, that's
another great. 2 others that I would mention out of the 7. One of them was just fantastic, was a referral to us called Space Perspective, and that is a space tourism company based right at Kennedy Space Center that will take up to 8 people to the edge of space over a 6-hour journey, 2 hours at the apogee, and instead of, and it'll do it without the use of a rocket. It's a weather balloon on steroids is the best that I could say it. And they're developing a pressurized capsule that looks kind of like a UFO, and literally takes you, 7 family members, and a pilot up to 100,000 feet, where you can see what the astronauts call the overview effect. In their last test flight, they showed me a picture of what it looked like at 100,000 feet, and it just, it's high enough. You don't have to deal with gravity. You don't have to deal with G-forces. I like to say grandparents will be able to take grandkids to the edge of space and then be able to talk about the overview effect and be able to talk about, not our borders and our countries, but, life on this planet and what humanity is really up to. Really exciting. And then another one, NASA developed technology called ecospheres, and they literally, NASA put millions into this, but they were able to draw PCBs and toxins out of waterways and be able to eradicate that. Where the other solutions, we've seen that up in the Hudson, where they're just like dredging the whole thing and ruining the ecosystem. This technology actually goes in and extracts that, preserves the ecosystem, and literally pulls the toxins out. And now Ecospheres, actually working with Violet Defense, is working on an industrial scale clean water initiative. So that's just kind of a flavor of some of the stuff. And those are 3 Florida headquartered companies. So it's just a really exciting time. And literally these days we get hit up, and you probably see it as well, but almost every day by an investable company. It is just an amazing, time out there.
And so how many companies, so you picked out 7, how many companies came to you to get out of the 7? What was the larger pool?
Say that first part again.
So how many companies did you have to go down through to evaluate to come up with 7 companies?
Oh, yeah, we go through a lot. One of our commitments to the community is that we even if we say, hey, this just isn't right for our portfolio, or, you know, we don't think you're ready, or, you know, whatever the issue is, we always try to give constructive advice. But yeah, we spend a lot of time on due diligence. We probably, I mean, at least we've probably looked at, you know, to get to that, probably at least 70 to 80. It's probably, you know, 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 15, somewhere in that. If I had to guess, we at least looked at 100, probably 100 companies to get those 7, and then several of those we have as a backlog to invest in, and so we'll be making those announcements in the coming weeks. Our last investment was a company called Matrix, which is out of the University of Florida, based in Gainesville, just about an hour and 45 minutes north of where I'm at, and they have amazing technology that will help with the transition from LED screens, which we mostly have now, to OLED screens, and to help the technology and the plants that build those screens, instead of having to tear all those plants down, they can literally just transition into this new technology. And what they could do with these future screens is just absolutely amazing.
Wow. And now, you a GP or are you an LP? When you go in,
I'm on the GP side. Yeah.
And what about in terms of the rounds? Do you lead the rounds or you do follow-on investment?
We always say we play nice with others. It's always our hope that we get to lead the round. We've just seen too many deals, you know, in Florida and across the country where, you know, people just put together bad term sheets, whether it's intentional or whether it's negligent, you know, who knows, but it's just the worst when either an angel group or a venture group or some type of investor does the early structuring of a company, and literally it can make them uninvestable, when it could be a fantastic founder and just amazing technology, and you're just like, I'm there's no way that we can get involved because, you know, the way that this deal's structured. So we prefer to do that ourselves. And then if other people, you know, want to get involved or believe in it, then it's fine. What I loved about the Kiranaga philosophy is, if we have the conviction to do it, like, we'll lead the round, but we don't need co-investors to believe in it. For us to have conviction, we call it post-validated technology. If we know the technology is real, then we'll take the risk all day on the commercialization, because we go, hey, we'll get you there. And most of the founders we work with are technical founders. They've never formed a business before. They've never, you know, done the marketing or done the business development or really taken something to commercialization. So we go, like, it's okay. You're brilliant. And you're brilliant at what you do. You keep doing that, and we'll help bring the team around you, and we'll help introduce you. I mean, literally, that's one of our favorite things is we go, who's your top 3 aspirational clients? You know, let's make sure that we're all on the same page about who those are. And then you're like, we probably know them. So the minute that you're ready, we'll get you in front of those folks. And we can never guarantee that, you know, a big company or big investor is going to buy what you're selling, but we can certainly get your foot in the door.
No, that's great. Listen, we're coming to the top of the hour. Closing thoughts, and how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is, I think, anybody who's not on LinkedIn these days, I just think it's the most valuable asset, and especially having run a chamber of commerce before, it's nice connecting with people in your community, but when you go, I want to talk to this person in this company, and you go, like, there they are, and then just my advice is, don't try to sell them because we get it too often, like, I have a company, want to invest, and you're like, no, we have to, think of it as a dating process, no matter if you're looking for a job or you're looking for investment, and then I would do it earlier, the better. Like, don't reach out the minute you need something. Be like, hey, I'm working on this. I want to make you aware of it. I'm really proud of what I'm working on. Here it is. Because I love connecting with people like that, and to be like, wow, that's really cool. Let's stay in touch. hey, are there connections I can make for you? Like, what do you need? And you just, start the conversation that way. But yeah, I think that's one of, obviously you can go through our web, kiranaga.com. You could reach out to us a variety of ways, but yeah, the best one, the best way to reach me is usually through LinkedIn.
No, that's great. Well, Jim, I want to thank you for taking time in your busy schedule to come on the show today. And to my audience, I want to thank you. My name is Gary Fowler, and this is GSD Presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. Today, we have another special edition coming up at 12 o'clock. I will have Anna Fedorova on, and we will be talking about early stage startups from around the world from Unicorn Battle. So, Jim, thank you so much. Have a great day. Stay safe and stay healthy. Audience, see you soon. Thanks for taking your time. Take care, Jim.
All right. Take care.